We have some folks virtual. Trent? Nobody? Okay, well, I was going to welcome them. Welcome, everybody, to our board meeting. It's nice to see you back in the boardroom, and the agendas are posted on the board around the room. This is the fun time. We get to have kids back in the school in our board meetings to give us a musical presentation from Matilda out to Weaver High School. Chris is here, the principal, and our teacher of the year, Mr. Daniels, is here. And he told me not to, but Mr. Daniels, would you please introduce those great ones you brought? After which Christine will give us a pledge of allegiance. So please.
Well, these two lovely young ladies behind me are two of my leads from the musical Matilda that we did. This is Christine Doman. She played Matilda. And Savannah Chertuti, who played Miss Honey. And the reason we loved this show so much is because of the educational aspect it had in it. When I saw it on Broadway, when it was still on Broadway, I remember leaving that show thinking, I want to be a better teacher. And I loved that idea that we can instill this lesson in these kids, not only their talents, but the lessons of education and what it means. So I'll let them introduce themselves from here on out, but it was a great show. We ran for 9 nights, and with a sold out matinee for the elementary kids that came over to see it, and we sold out our last 2 performances as well. So it was kind of fun to get back in the school building again with performing arts. So here they go.
Yeah, like Mr. Daniels said, I'm Christine, and I got to play Matilda, and it was so awesome. And this is...
And I'm Savannah Chertuti, and I played Miss Honey.
So fun. And so this scene we're going to do is called My House, and basically it's about Miss Honey and Matilda, and it shows their relationship and how Miss Honey finds refuge and like confidence in her house. And we thought that was so perfect because it shows the positive student-teacher relationship that we're all trying to push for. So, my house.
This room keeps me dry when the rain falls. This door helps me keep the cold at bay. On this floor I can sleep like home to me. On this chair I can write my lessons. On this pillow I can dream my nights away. And this
Honey, is this your father's scarf?
Well, yes, it was. My mother gave it to him before she died. You see, she was
An aerialist.
Well, yes. You see, and my father was a...
He was the handsome aerialist.
Matilda, how did you know that?
So they were your parents?
What? Who? I don't...
The people in my story. I've been telling a story, and I thought I was making it up. But it's real. I've seen your life.
You've seen my life?
She did him in. Let's go to the police. Come on.
What? No, we can't. We have no evidence.
But why? You could just tell them. Tell them she did it.
That wouldn't work, Matilda. You see, it would be my word against hers. And they would never believe that she was capable of murder.
But why? She was so cruel to you. She beat you and shouted at you and locked you up in tiny cupboards and threw you in cellars.
Stop, Matilda, please.
Miss Honey, your aunt's a murderer. She killed Magnus. Who is she? Miss Trunchbull!
Thank you.
Okay, will the audience please stand for the pledge? Repeat after me, or with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Whoa, don't be leaving so fast. First of all, we need to introduce one of our teachers that her daughter was in this. Melissa Chertuti. How'd I do? All right, thank you. Girls, I just need to ask one question. First of all, you made goosebumps go up on my arms just listening to you. And we could listen to the rest of the play if you'd like to, but we got a couple of action items. So if you could bring it back. What are you going to do with your performances that you've done? I presume what grade are you in, and what are you going to do with it? Healthier, Tuacahn, Broadway. That was very well done. Thank you. Awesome. We need tickets when you guys make it big. Let's give them one more round of applause. That was awesome. Thank you, Miss Ernest, for having such a great school that performs for the great audience of Weber School District. Well, now I'm done. Board, our first action item would be the consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion to accept. So moved by Doug. Second by Jen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Recognitions. This is the next best thing about the beautiful board meetings we have. And the first one will be our Utah School Teacher of the Year, Miss Gina Butters. Would you please rat and rave about Mr. Mark Daniels from Weber High School?
Honored if I can get this to work. Great board, President Ritchie, Superintendent Stevens. What a special good fortune for me tonight. Let's bring this handsome bearded fellow up. Come on, come and stand by me. You'll notice on the screen, Trent's helping me out with some props up here, but you're probably wondering why the scruffy beard. But this guy right here that I'm going to talk about a little bit and brag about, and he hates it, but we're going to do it anyway, is living his craft. He's Scrooge right now in the Washington Terrace Playhouse. It runs from now until the 23rd, and I'd encourage everybody to go. I'm going to try to get a ticket. Show that next picture, would you, Trent? This is the one that really cracked me up. There's Mark Daniels right there. He embodies passion about everything that he does, and I'm just so ultra honored. So let me try to stay on script here. I have a personal favorite poet. His name's Rumi, and many of you have heard of him, 13th century poet. And one of the quotes that I love that he says, and I've used it with our administrators this year, he said, "Wherever you stand, be the soul of that place." And I can't think of an educator, human being, individual that embodies Rumi's quote of "wherever you stand, be the soul of that place." If you've ever been around Mark, he elevates you. You have to climb up a really steep staircase to get to his classroom. It's a little scary, but once you get there, you realize it's this really unique kind of just this gnarly kind of place, isn't it? There's magical things that happen there, and it's a unique space. When you're in the auditorium, you always have to look up to find Mark. He's in the shadows and he's managing things up. You're looking up. This guy takes people to higher ground. And that's what I think Rumi's talking about. Wherever you stand, be the soul of that place. It's no surprise. We're here to honor and really recognize tonight the fact that not only is he our Weaver School District Teacher of the Year, he has gone on and blown people away at the state level and was named Utah State Educator of the Year. And we need to acknowledge that publicly and formally tonight. Congratulations. I just want to brag about him just a little bit. Mark is the storied theater arts teachers, at Weber High School. He is a warrior through and through. And wherever he stands, he is the soul of every space that he occupies at Weber High. He's influenced thousands of kids across his 26-year career. He's spent 17 of those at Weber High. He did teach elementary for a year, 6th grade at Green Acres, but he had his eye on that theater arts position at Weber High. He was waiting for it. And when it presented itself, he just walked right into the right fit. He told me that as a Weber High alumni, he knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his career there. Wherever you stand, be the soul of the place. It's a calling. He knew it was his calling. For someone who is used to being up front, he hates this. He's squirming, I can tell. He told me to keep it short. I'm not going to do that on purpose. I'm going to go a few extra seconds here, but this is what he said specifically about being named District and State Teacher of the Year. This experience is so humbling and intimidating because there are so many brilliant teachers that deserve this award. So many in our district and so many in the state. I will do my absolute best to represent. I love what I do, and I hope to share that love of the arts and what it can do to help build our students. I think you saw two great examples right there of what it can do to build students. Mark will be going on to compete at the national level. I would not be surprised if I'm going to hold my breath. I'm going to cross my fingers and toes, but I would not be surprised. He's deserving of that kind of level of recognition. I'm going to just focus on three main reasons why I think he is the soul of every place that he stands in. If you know Mark, and I've gotten to know him a little bit better these last 3 years, he is goodness and humanity personified. When you're around him, right now I'm holding my shoulders back and I'm standing up a little straighter. He brings out that kind of response in people. You just want to be your best self around him. Our kids are so lucky to have that kind of an influence. He elevates the situation. We've talked about that. A student I spoke with recently outside of his classroom said this about Mark. Her face lit up too when I asked her to kind of just, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say Mr. Daniels? And she said, he is the teacher at Weber High that I respect the most. Being around him makes me happy, and I always look forward to his class because I feel like he sincerely cares about me. Principal Chris Ernest, right here, sees Mark in this way. Mark is the teacher you wish you could clone. There's 3 shots of him cloned right up there. Maybe that's possible. Because he makes connections with all students in his classes. He teaches to all learners, and he creates an environment where students feel safe and where they want to be. She says, thanks, Mark, for choosing to make a positive impact in the lives of our students, staff, and community. And then this is big. She said, you are Mr. Weber. You are Mr. Weber. That's pretty amazing. A second thing I'd like to highlight, if you've ever been to a Weber High production, it is a production. It is not your typical high school production. It is bold, it's big. There are sometimes hundreds of kids involved. 130. How many were in Mamma Mia? Like a couple. 140. Can you imagine coordinating that much teenage energy and all those hormones and everything? He does it. He figures out a way to do it. There's a professional quality to his productions, and his students are ultra prepared and showcased in ways that allow them to shine and show their talents. His shows are standouts. They're standouts in our state, and it's no surprise that he's being recognized for that. One of the things I love about Mark is he's always wanting to pull kids in and be kind of this inclusive educator where if you want to shine and you want to grow, come. There's a place for you. He said this, I believe that a classroom and a stage should be safe, caring community where kids are free to take risks in creating characters that will allow them to grow and develop on and off the stage. I believe that every student that has the desire to explore the arts and be in a production should have the opportunity to do so. And he doesn't turn anybody away. I think that's amazing. The third and last thing I could say, and I could go on and on about Mark, but you take a look right up there at that picture. He lives his craft. He is passionate about the arts. He knows what it can do for kids. He shows them what it can do for them. And I believe that somebody who is the soulful person in a place helps kids to understand that not only are they performing in front of their school community and on behalf of, and representing themselves and their families and their school, but they're getting ready to prepare for that performance that is life. And that's what a soulful person does, is they prepare people for life. Those are the special educators amongst us. So I just want to tell Mark how proud I am of him personally. I know how proud we all are of him, and wish him the best of luck as he pursues this next step, which like I said, I'm not going to be surprised. All right. Congratulations to Mark Daniels.
Thank you, Gina. Well done. Congratulations, Mark. We're lucky to have you. How about the EA Teaching Excellence Award? Clyde Moore, please.
President Ritchie, Board, Superintendent Stevens, I feel honored to follow that up with another great educator that we got in our district. And I think we're so lucky to be talking and recognizing two state recognized educators and also national recognized educators. So that's what I'm about to do here right now is introduce you to our second state and national recognized educator that we have in our district. Alexander Smith, will you come join me? I'm gonna, share with you some information about Alexander, and it's gonna sound pretty close to what you just heard, and I think that's what great teachers and educators look like. Alexander is an amazing teacher. She's a teacher at Sandridge Junior High School, where she's been there for 4 years. She came up from where she went to college at Southern Utah University, where she majored in Spanish with a minor in English. At Sandridge, she teaches Spanish, ESL, English, and also Latino in Action classes. And she was asked by her students to serve as an advisor for a GSA club at the school. Despite her busy teaching schedule, she is currently working on her master's degree in English language art. And she has volunteered to serve as a policy ambassador for the UEA and a member of the Weber School District Equity, Justice, and Inclusion Committee, and is also a community mentor. The National Education Association Foundation California Casualty Award for Teaching Excellence represent educators who embody excellence in their practice, advocacy for the profession, commitment to equity and opportunity, community engagement, leadership, and professional development. She was first honored on October 1st by the UEA at a Superstar in Education banquet. 45 finalists from around the country were selected by their NEA state affiliates, and that number is now narrowed down to 5 finalists. We're the president of one of those finalists right here. I want to congratulate Alexander on that. On February 11th, 2022, she and her husband have received an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to attend the NEA Foundation's Salute to Excellence Gala, where the winner will be announced. And like Gina, I got full confidence that we're going to have another national educator in our presence. 4 years ago, Assistant Superintendent Art Hansen took a trip to Southern Utah on a teaching recruiting trip. That's where he first met Alexander. He was really impressed by her, so much so he offered her early contract. I had an opening for an ESL teacher at Sandridge at that time. I was a principal. And Art Hansen came by and said, "Hey, I got a teacher for you." And I was a little nervous because I had no say-so on what that looked like. And I'm thinking, okay, you're going to give me a teacher. Okay, good luck with that. It didn't take me very long to realize I had a gem in my presence. A couple trips to her classroom, and I knew she was a special teacher. Art goes on to say, I had the opportunity to meet Alexander at a teaching job fair a few years ago at Southern Utah University. As I visited with Alexander, I quickly realized that she was special and that we needed her skills in the Weber School District. He goes on to say, "I'm so proud that she decided to bring her skills to the Weber School District and her expertise and her love for children to our district. She immediately began having a positive impact on the students at Sandridge." He said, "I spoke with Alexander administrators, fellow teachers, as well as district officials. They all speak of describing her in different ways, but all describe her as doing what's best for kids." Her principal, Sherry Patton, which is in here in the attendance, said this about Alexander: "Her compassion, professionalism, and desire through her teaching to be a fierce advocate for the underserved population at the school. She delights her students with creativity, interesting, and thoughtful lessons. She leads by example and feels it's important for her students to learn service." Alexander LIA students visit the local elementary schools to read to the young students there. Karen Miller, a trainer for our equity committee, said, "Alexander is always looking for additional ways to support her students and to teach her peers how to meet the needs of their students. Alexander is a fantastic teacher, a professional in every way, and a person with a heart of gold." One of our students commented about Alexander. So Ms. Smith is the only teacher who looks like me. She's the kind of person I want to be. My personal comments about Alexander as a principal for 1 year, and I have that regret of leaving her. So when I was a principal at Sandridge, I regretted going to her class to pull a student out, maybe for a parent pickup or whatever, because I knew when I walked to her door, I was going to see learning. And I hesitated to walk in because I knew that 4 or 5 seconds was going to interrupt a high level of learning and student engagement. So I always just walked to that door and hesitated. I never just walked in because I didn't want to be the interruption to her lessons. This recognition is not a surprise to me, to be honest about it. I witnessed the impact that Alexander have on her students and their learning. I want to congratulate Alexander for the national recognition she well deserved. And I'd like to have her to introduce her husband at this time.
So this is my husband, Matt, and honestly, I wouldn't have been able to move up here without him leaving his career behind for me to come up here and do mine. So I'm really thankful for him.
I want to thank him also. We're lucky, and I do appreciate him willing to make that move for his wife career. He's also, I think, works at Weber State as an advisor, so we're lucky to have him at Weber State as well. President Ritchie's board, Superintendent Stephen, it's an honor for me to recognize our Weber School District National Top 5 finalists for the California Casualty Award for Teaching Excellence, Alexander Smith.
Nice job, Clyde. Alexandra, we're lucky to have you as well. Whatever it takes to keep you, all right? Especially where you're in Roy. Well, we have great people. We have great staff that take care of kids all around, and we thank them. We thank all the principals that are with us tonight and those teachers that make such an impact on our kids, and we thank them. It's time now to turn the time over to our exceptional superintendent for a report. Superintendent Dr. Stevens, please.
Thank you, President, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a report to the Board of Education. As we go through this, I'm going to share some, some data that has taken place over the course of the past 11 years. Trent, where do I need to, where can I just, not work? Okay, can I just, I'll just kind of indicate to you, why don't you move forward. As we go through this, I'll show some data, but I've also included some pictures, and hopefully the pictures kind of help create a narrative, share a narrative as well. Board, when I was hired in 2011, our student enrollment was 30,400. This year it's 32,800. Our growth has been pretty steady. Typically, 250, 300 last year. We had really an anomaly where we saw a decrease in enrollment of just under 400 students. This year it rebounded by 579, but you can see that it's been pretty steady growth of about 250, 300 students each year. The picture represents maybe a fun tradition that I started back in 2011, and that was to invite the student body officers from each high school, along with their student body advisor and their principal, into lunch, usually in the first week of August. It's given me such a great opportunity to get to know each of our high school student leaders, understand some of their goals individually and collectively, but maybe most importantly, talk about leadership with them. I've had that privilege probably 50 or 60 times with extraordinary young people to talk about leadership and what leadership is in terms of not about power and position, but about being in a place where you can serve others and help others. And boy, when all of us are ready to step off the stage, there are some great people that will step onto the stage and take us to another level. Let's move forward, Trent. One of the charges I was given when I was hired was to increase graduation rates, and to do that in a way that didn't compromise academic rigor or integrity. So these next couple of slides will show some things that we've tried to do. When I was hired, our high school graduation rate was 77%. And it has been a very steady climb. This last month, we received our 2021 graduation rate, and that has been a goal for us, is to get to 90%. This is the first year Weber School District's ever attained 90%. I'm so thrilled with that. Yeah, that represents, I know we've got junior high and high school people here. This is not just our high schools. This is everybody working together to make sure that young people are successful. And that 90.41% represents so much work. This young man in the picture's name's Ben Ikuli. I'm not going to reveal any confidential information because the Deseret News wrote a substantial article about Ben Ikuli a few years ago. Ben is a refugee from the Congo. When Ben was 6, he was coming home to his village, and he saw that his village was under attack. And Ben and his 11-year-old brother just fled into the forest, into the woods, and for the next 5 years just roamed about the Congo, surviving any way they could. Ben gratefully came to the United States, found his way to Roy, Utah in his 9th grade year, and Ben represents one of those graduates. Coach Fred Fernandez got his arm around Ben, and Ben became the place kicker for the state runner-up championship team that I had a few years ago. One of the finest young men I've ever been around, Ben Ikuli, a graduate of Weber High School, or of Weber School District, Roy High School. Let's move forward, Trent. Um, while our graduation rate has increased, like I said, part of the charge when I was hired was that should not be done at the expense of academic rigor. When I was hired in 2011, we had just over 1,500 students who were involved in concurrent enrollment, and those 1,500 students were earning just over 3,400 credits. This past year, we had more than 3,000, almost 3,100 students involved in concurrent enrollment classes, and those 3,100 students earned a combined 8,300 concurrent enrollment credits. And so that is those concurrent enrollment classes are so rigorous, taught by trained teachers from universities, we're really proud of that concurrent enrollment number. This is a school visit to one of our elementary schools, and the teacher I'm standing back with, I taught her. Rebecca Wilhelmsen, Rebecca Bloom now. Let's move forward, Trent. Advanced placement. This is another area where you can start to gauge academic rigor. In 2011, we had 862 students, total students testing, and they had earned, of those students, testing in advanced placement classes, taking those AP tests, 524 passed. In 2021, we've been able to increase that total by about 50%, over 1,200 students testing. But look at the number of students passing, 1,067. That really represents, students sometimes are less likely to take an AP class because in order to get credit, they've got to pass that AP test with a 3 or higher. And that's maybe why you see more movement in the concurrent enrollment classes than the AP classes, but you've seen that we've been able to increase both. These three lovely ladies that I'm with, some of you remember a few years ago, we had a tragedy at Bear Lake. And the, the two girls on the right were in the water for 4 to 5 hours, and just miraculous that they survived. So you've got next to me is Tori, Tiffany in the middle, and Tylin. Tori and Tylin are sisters, and I taught their mother. Tori is married. She had just completed, Tori was not involved in the accident. Tori had just finished her uh, um, uh, emergency medical response certification 2 weeks prior to the accident. And when Tori arrived on the scene, she was able to assist the Rich County search and rescue with the whole rescue process. Tiffany in the middle is on a mission right now, and Tylin is employed in the Weber School District. Beautiful young ladies. Let's move forward, Trent. One of the areas, board, that we're so pleased with is dealing with mental health specialists. In the last few years, we've been able to hire 15 mental health specialists, licensed clinical social workers. Sometimes you'll hear them LCSWs. That's what that LCSW stands for. Last year, those 15 mental health specialists served extensively over 600 students, providing an average of 11 sessions per student, so over 6,800 sessions for those students who are struggling. I do not know how we could have made it the last couple of years without these mental health specialists. Um, if you haven't talked to parents, I've talked to parents, they've contacted me. It is so difficult for a parent to get a child in to see a mental health specialist. There's just no openings. And so a child might be going through a crisis situation and they'll try to get in, and it's been 2 and 3 months out. And to have these LCSWs in our schools is just remarkable. And we're working with legislators to even expand um, uh, the revenue that we could access to hire some more. In addition to the 6,800 sessions, these 15 mental health specialists, if you can imagine it, helped us in another 1,450 crisis situations. The picture you see up there is a young man named Christian. Christian experienced a lot of challenge in his life, but there was so much support wrapped around Christian through the school. And Chris Zimmerman had a foundation board member who had just purchased a brand new laptop, but was transferred out of town and gave Chris a charge to find a young person who was going to school but maybe had some economic or other challenges. And Chris came to me and I said, I know exactly who to get that to. His parents are also present, which is the reason Lex Puffer was there as well, because his parents only spoke Spanish and Lex was able to communicate to them with that. But that represents a tremendous success story, and Christian is doing very well. Let's go forward, Trent. Beginning teacher salaries, and you talk about recruit and retain. Weber School District is always either #1 or #2 in the state as it relates to teacher retention. And some of it's salary, but I hope more of it's some of the other stuff. But when I was hired, the beginning teacher salary was $33,600. This past year, we were able to get that beginning teacher salary to $46,000, and hopefully we'll be able to bump that up. Some of the other stuff that might keep teachers, this was one of my funnest. This is a teacher at Orchard Springs named Angie Mogg. Some of you might know Angie's husband, Chris, as well, who's at Roy High teaching. But it's a bad memory, I guess, that Orchard Springs didn't open on time. So we had to move teachers for the first quarter into some other schools. And I was in one of the other schools. I think this is West Weber, where Angie started the year before we were able to get, Orchard Springs open in November. And I was there the night before school opened. There was an open house for parents to come in, and I just checking to make sure teachers had everything they needed. And Angie said, Superintendent, I've got everything I need, but kind of in passing, she said, but I don't see a pencil sharpener here. So I went down the night before school started and fought the back to school crowd at Walmart. And she was so surprised when I walked back into her room about an hour later with that pencil sharpener. That's Angie Morgan. I love that picture. A wise former superintendent in Weber School District told me years ago, a good superintendent takes care of the people who takes care of the children. Let's go to the next one, Trent. Bond elections. We've had 3 successful bond elections during my time as superintendent. That was actually the last June bond election in the state of Utah. And then it was, at one time you could hold a bond election at any time in the year. And then it went to 8 times, and then 4 times, and then 2 times. And now it's just in the November general election. But the June 2012, $65 million, that was a challenging bond because we're just coming out of the recession. Boy, what we'd do for construction costs, though, what we were able to do with that $65 million was phenomenal. November of 2017, $97 million bond, and then, of course, this past November. So 3 bonds for a total of $441 million. And I'll get to what we've been able to do with that in just a minute. That picture right there is a class visit to Mrs. Mercer's class, and the young man in the front row, he's my favorite student of all time. Does that just say it all? I just want every child to come to school and be that excited about learning. I love that little boy. That's a great picture. In fact, it's in the district office in the superintendent's area. Let's go to the next one. With those bond elections, we've been able to build a number of schools. Orchard Springs is a new school, Silver Ridge out in the Remuda area. Uh, the Weber K-12 Online, which didn't require a lot of brick and mortar necessarily, although we have our K-6 teachers that are full-time, and we have them housed right now at Orchard Springs because we've got a little space there. I mentioned in the soup and salad right now, we have approximately 1,000 students in our Weber K-12 Online. About 250 of those are full-time K-6 students. Dr. Jennifer Boyer Thurgood's just doing a remarkable job there. I don't know how we could have made it through the pandemic and met the needs of families without our Weber K-12 Online. The Weber Innovation Early College High School will build with this new latest bond a new high school in Taylor, a new junior high in West Haven, and a new elementary also in the West Haveners. So those are the new schools with those bond elections that were successful. With the picture, with all that building and so forth, I've had many opportunities to be a part of groundbreaking or ribbon cutting, but I will never do a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting that I don't look in the audience and find someone to come and help me. That's Timmy Short, and Timmy helped me cut the ribbon, Dean, at the North Ogden gym, and I still kind of stay close to Timmy. He's just a wonderful boy. Let's go forward, Trent. We also have some replacement schools. Walquist Junior High was the first replacement school. That was a fun one for me because that was the first school that I was a part of the dedication as superintendent, and it was on the anniversary of my 30th year from having started teaching at Walquist Junior High. And one of the thrills there was I saw so many of my former students at that dedication who were there as parents. We also replaced North Park Elementary. That was a unique replacement that required a lot of collaboration with Roy City, Jan and John, and the three-way land swap. That was as neat a partnership and arrangement, and it worked out as a win-win-win for the redevelopment agency, Roy City, and certainly Weber School District. West Weber Elementary was in desperate need of replacement, and it's such a beautiful school and serves the community so well. I remember being at the dedication at West Weber, and an old farmer came up in this brand new school, and he had kind of a scowl on his face, and I wondered what I was going to get. And he looked at me and he said, "Superintendent, this is a good school for our children," and I was pleased to pass that test. Birch Creek Elementary is a new school, and if you remember, that replaced two schools, Club Heights Elementary and Marlon Hills Elementary. So that was we had two schools that were in need of replacement, and Birch Creek did that. Roy Junior High, wow, what a gorgeous school that is. John and Dean, of course, was a former principal there. Just neat to be there. And Roosevelt is where not only I went to school, my wife went to school there, all of our children went to school there, and so that'll be a neat replacement school. That sweet little girl is named Ennichelle Campbell, and she at that time is a first grader at H. Guy Child. And Ennichelle had submitted a theme for the national, here we're recognizing national recognized teachers. Ennichelle, as a first grader, submitted a theme for the National Reflections Contest, and it was selected. It's called Look Within. And so I wanted to pay tribute to Ennichelle, and we took her some flowers. Her mom and dad are there, but that's a rarity to have imagine that, a first grader whose proposed theme for the Reflections Contest is selected at a national level. Let's go forward, Trent. We also have some major additions as part of those bond elections that were successful. Rocky Mountain Junior High, we had a 10 classroom addition at Rocky Mountain. North Ogden Junior High, Dean, a beautiful new gym and 6 classrooms. I love to go into that now. Fremont High School is part of our 2017 bond, a 12 classroom addition. I don't know where Paul would be at Fremont without those 12 classrooms. We're already full in those 12 classrooms and bringing portables back out. And then a beautiful addition at the Weber Innovations Early College High School. I hope I'm always learning, and that's what this picture represents. I'm in Crystal Deemer's class, and Lori, you were the principal at that time at Pioneer. Well, I was probably with Lori and walking through some classes, and as I walked into this first grade class that Crystal Deemer was teaching, I asked them what they were learning about. Now, board, normally I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the content of first grade curriculum. But these children told me they were learning about red-eye tree frogs. And I said, I don't know anything about red-eye tree frogs. And so they invited me back out after they'd completed their reports. And I have better than Wikipedia information on red-eyed tree frogs, but they all did those reports for me and drew pictures and wrote about red-eyed tree frogs. So that's me learning a little bit about red-eyed tree frogs. Let's go forward, Trent. Some fun facts. There have been 137 school board meetings, and I've enjoyed almost every one. I've signed over 55,000 Superintendent Summer Reading Award certificates. You know, I made that commitment, and somebody said, you know, they make a stamp. And I said, if a child can read 1,000 pages in the summer, I can write my name. And so that was always a fun thing. In that process, I believe I've read to approximately 1,200 classes. There have been 97 high school graduation ceremonies. Some people don't know that in a typical year we have 9 high school graduation ceremonies. It's easy just to think of our 4 traditional, but we also have Two Rivers and Weber Innovation and Adult Ed and our Life graduation and our adult or our Youth Build graduation. There's 9 graduations, so 97 high school graduation ceremonies. I think I've made more than 200 community bond presentations from 2012, 17, and 21. I was telling my wife the other night, she asked about some question. I said, sweetheart, there's not a question anybody could ask me about a bond I think that I couldn't respond to. I'll tell you one that was funny. In fact, I don't know, Lori, if you were still out to Pioneer, but I know this was at Pioneer. There was a fellow that wanted to know why we didn't build the schools now like the pioneers build them. And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that, you know, if he meant without, you know, running water and lights but he told me that his grandmother's home was built about 100 years ago and it's still standing today. And I just smiled, not in a smart aleck way, but I said, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to guess your grandmother didn't have 1,000 kids running through her home every single day. And he just laughed. He said, you got me. But we had fun with that. Gosh, I've been in this district office now for a little over 22 years, 4 years as curriculum director, 7 years as assistant superintendent, 11 years as superintendent. Before that, I was principal at South Junior High, and 10 wonderful years as a teacher and a coach at Walquist Junior High. Margaret pointed this next thing out to me that I guess there's a plaque out here that this will be the longest serving Weber superintendent since Parley Bates from 1942 to 1957. The picture represents our dear friend. We can see our dear friend. That was one of the last board meetings that Brent attended. And of course, today we meet in the Brent J. Richardson boardroom.
Should you try to beat Marley Bates' record?
No. Let's go forward. Board, I've had the honor of working with the greatest people during my 36, 37 years in Weber School District. In fact, there's a line from, I'll say it's the greatest movie of all time, and Leila knows exactly what I'm going to say. It's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. There's a great line in that film, and they're being chased, and they keep looking at one another, and the question is, who are those guys? Who are those guys? Because they just don't stop coming. They never quit, no matter what obstacle or challenge they're faced with. History's going to look back one day on the teachers, administrators, support professionals, board members, parents, students in the Weber School District, especially through some of these challenging times that we've been through lately, and say, who were those guys? Who were those guys? That nothing stopped them. And it's been my highest honor professionally to serve as the superintendent of the Weber School District. These pictures, that's one of my favorite. That's Jen in the bottom left-hand corner. Jen is completely nonverbal, and yet we had the most wonderful, heartwarming conversation. Jen's telling me about her dog, but she can only use that device to communicate with me. The other picture represents one of very many that we read to classrooms and presented those Superintendent Summer Reading Awards. President Ritchie, board members, my dear friends, with that, I'd like to formally announce my intent to retire at the conclusion of this school year and tell you that it has been such a privilege to work with each one of you. Boards are most successful when they're filled with men and women who don't have agendas, just want to do the right thing for children. And that's the way this board has been. And it's been a delight for me to serve you in this role. Thank you.
I don't know that we can say anything other than clap and stand.
I failed to do one thing. I could not have made it through, especially some of the challenges that we've seen of late without my sweetheart. This year will be 40 years that we've been married, and we feel like we're off to a good start.
You feel like, what do you say?
Superintendent, I'm not so sure that there's words to replace you.
After that.
We know we can't replace the quality that we have with the leadership and the well-rounded. You are such a major leader in our district, in our community, in our state, and in our nation. You're going to be missed more than you'll know. We love you. We wish you the best, Leila. We're still coming over for Christmas dinner because you don't have anything else to do. Board, I'd like to turn some time over to the board for just a moment, please.
I have to take just a minute and tell Dr. Stevens how much I love and appreciate him. We've been friends for a good portion of the time that he's been with Weber School District. We were teachers and administrators together. I was the principal at Roy Junior, and he was the principal at South. We had opportunities to get to know each other a little bit and to travel to various conferences together. And he is every bit as good as you've seen here. He's terrific. The thing I love and appreciate about him is he's always been honest and modest and truthful and is willing to do what he said he would do. I can remember me talking to him about the North Ogden Junior High gym for I don't know how many years. And finally, when I went to him again and said, I think it's time we did something about that gym, he said, you're right. We need to do that. And so we started originally talking about, I don't know, $1 or $2 million to do that. And then the more we talked about it and the more we worked at it and went out and looked at it and did everything that needed to be done. And we finally got the gym built, and there was a cost of over $6 million. And he didn't know, and we didn't know how we were going to pay for all of that. It just needed to be done. And so he did a fantastic job of figuring out how to do that to get the gym paid for. It's a beautiful, beautiful addition to a terrific junior high school. And I'm so grateful for Dr. Stevens. I call him Jeff, but I have to be formal here. I have a ton of stories together. One of my favorite times is when we were at a conference in Boston, and Jeff and I just walked around Boston and talked and went to all of the terrific historic places in Boston and just had a terrific time. I am truly going to miss Jeff, and having him here, he'll always be a part of my life, but having him here to talk to, sometimes as busy as he was, visiting schools and going all over the state, if I came in, said, can I talk to you for a minute? He just took me in, sat down, and we talked. And it was a terrific experience. We're going to miss you, but you know what? Something else is in your life. I don't know what it is, but you'll be terrific wherever you go. And I want you to know that you're one of my very best friends, and I appreciate you. Thanks.
I just want to take a minute to say thanks. I love you like a brother. We, as newlyweds, Kathleen and I moved to Washington Terrace in 1974, and that's when we got to know you and the Stevens family. So I love to tell people I knew Jeff before he was famous. And and one day in 2008, he called me at work and said, Doug, there's an opening coming on the board. What are your thoughts about running for election? And being a person that likes to be in the background, I didn't verbalize it. My first thought was not only no, but heavens no. But then he talked me into it with his great persuasion. He said, well, it's nonpartisan, and if you go down and file early, you may run unopposed. So I thought I can chance that. And so it's been a blessing in my life to be associated with Jeff. And I learned much more from him than he might have ever learned from me. And what a great privilege it's been to serve with you, and a dear friend from the neighborhood. Thank you.
I might have to use yours. Thank you. I am very, very appreciative to Superintendent Stevens and grateful for him that he can choose when he's at the top of his game to move to the next arena. And like he said, he'll do fabulously with Leela's help in the next situation. Considering the board members, I am the one who has known Superintendent the shortest time. And it was only through my affiliation on this board that I have known him. I've tried really hard to represent parents and constituents in my area. And because of that, I've often come to Jeff with situations, questions, concerns that might be a little out of the ordinary. And he's always been rational, supportive, caring, and helpful and informative to me. And I have greatly appreciated that. I can't guess what it will be like, but it's just like your comment. Who are those guys? They just keep coming. And Weber will just keep coming because we know that's what you want us to do.
You know what's coming. Jeff and I met on the 11th of August of 1979 on a basketball court in Seattle, Washington. I know that because I wrote about it in my journal. It's been a wonderful string of years. Jeff is a man of integrity. Only once in my life have I known him to bend that integrity, and that was during a board game that had went on way too long, and he started cheating, and it made me feel good because I'd been cheating the whole time. I just wanted it over. Jeff, we love you. You've done an outstanding job. What a remarkable career you've had, and thanks for all you've done. Thank you for your friendship. The night of this recent bond, Jeff came to me a little while before that and said, "Can we just sit out by your fire pit and watch the stars instead of watching the bond election?" So we sat out there. How late was it, Leela? 10 o'clock. Sat out by the fire pit and ate barbecue and just relaxed. And it's been such a wonderful friendship for so many years. Yeah. So, thank you.
Well, Jeff and I have been friends for many, many years. And I don't know that I know anyone that is a more remarkable leader through all the individuals I've met and worked with than Jeff is. I think it will be impossible to replace, but someone will take that direction that they need to. Jeff, I think the Weber County School District will be indebted to you for the rest of its life, for the leadership and the direction and care for students that you've shown. Jeff and I have worked in a lot of different capacities, and my story is somewhat like Doug's. I was somewhat coerced to apply to be here, and not what I would normally want to do, but it has been an experience that I would have wanted to miss. It's been exceptional, and most of that exceptional experience is because of Jeff Stevens. We love you. We'll look forward to working with you in the future, somewhere along the line. But thanks for what you've done.
You know, if I think about Dr. Stevens, Jeff, I think about education because that's been my experience with him. He is the consummate teacher. If I look around everyone in this room, I was just looking, I don't think there's anyone in here who hasn't been educated by Jeff Stevens on some level. And so I got to experience, I've probably been the most closely associated with him as an educator of the people on the board, and how much I've learned from him, how much I appreciate him, and how much educators appreciate him being in our court. We love him. We'll be sad to be without him. Whoever follows him will have a very, very high bar. And we hope that we can move forward in the way that he would have us. What would Jeff do?
Well, I have to concur with everything that's been said, Jeff, but at the same time, the legacy that's been left will never be made up again by anybody but you. It's an amazing legacy. And the number one concern that you had, and I can ask anybody in this room, what was Jeff's number one concern? Kids. Every time it was kids, and then staff, because kids have to have staff to be educated, and then everything else falls into place. We thank you. We love you. We're going to miss you, but we're gonna take care of it while we still got you. All righty? Leela, don't move. We'll be over for dinner. We thank you for everything, the times together, and again, we've all been taught by Jeff, and we thank you. One more. Jeff, those are tears of joy. I hope you know that. Okay, we're good to go then. Board, our item and action item is going to be the approval of the school calendar 2022-2023 on a second reading. Mr. Clyde Moore, please.
Dr. Stevens, I just want to say, I want to echo the board and say thank you for all that you've done for me and everyone else in this district. President Ritchie, Board of Education, Superintendent Stevens, on November 3rd, 2021, the Board of Education approved the attached calendar for the 2022-2023 school year on the first reading. As per their request, this calendar was sent to all employee groups and invited their input. There has not been any feedback received from these groups. Therefore, I propose that the Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 calendar on the second reading.
Thank you, Clyde. Board, you've heard the presentation, and I would entertain a motion to accept the 2022-2023 school calendar. Moved by Janice, second by Jan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. There you go, Clyde. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Consideration for a resolution on the 90 million general obligation. Dr. Stevens, please.
Yeah, I'm pinch hitting for Robert now, who's not well, and board, as the bond was successful in November, would like your consideration of a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $90 million of general obligation school building bonds, delegating authority to certain officials to approve the final terms and provisions of and confirm the sale of such bonds and providing for related matters. So this is the parameters resolution that we've experienced before prior to the issuance of bonds.
Board, you've heard the presentation. I'm not going to repeat that. I'd entertain a motion to accept that. Motion by Bruce, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. There you go. Recognize Matt that's with us, as well as Ryan and Seth. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the approval of the independent audit report. Seth, please.
You should be able to turn it on. Just right. There you go.
Okay, thanks. First, we contract, every year we go through the audit process and contract with external auditors to audit the financial statements. I'll turn just a few minutes over to Matt Geddes. Matt is with us from Squire and Company. He's one of the audit partners that oversees the audit, that was the manager over the job. So, Matt.
Thank you, board. I'll be brief because there's way more important things that happen tonight than this. I previously met with the audit committee and reported on the findings of our audit. Just to summarize that, we perform an audit of the financial statements, an audit of federal compliance, and an audit of state compliance as outlined by the Office of the Utah State Auditor's Audit Compliance Guide. And we issue opinions on compliance and an opinion on the financial statements. The financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district. That's auditor terms for you can rely on the financial statements as you make decisions. We did not identify any question costs. You use the funds appropriately, both federal and state funds. So nothing to report there. Thank you.
Thank you very much Seth. Do you have follow-up?
Just a couple of things. We met before and went over the details of the financial statements with the board. Those financial statements will be on our website for the public to see. If there's any questions, you can reach out to myself or Robert on those things. One of the things that Squire looked at was our expenditures of federal funds, and they focused a lot on the COVID relief funds that we received. And I just wanted to highlight that the focus, there were no findings related to any expenditure with those funds, and the focus from the top, from Superintendent Stevens and the superintendency, and then all the department heads rallied around, let's spend these funds to best adapt to the environment we're in and be able to reach those kids who have suffered learning loss because of COVID. And I appreciate the department heads and their direction, not only with the audit, but the tone that they set as well. And just want to recognize the tone that superintendent sets, the board sets, and also each of the department heads, and appreciate them. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we won't vote, but we'll say thank you to Robert on down, Seth, and your team, as well as those in critical positions that follow the policy. May not like it, but there's reasons for that, and this is part of it. And we thank them on the Weber Way and the Weber team and everybody that followed through. It was an impressive report. We thank you. We thank Squires for their help on more than one occasion in two ways for advice. So, having said that, Superintendent, do you have anything to say? We thank you for that. Board, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our agenda, and so with that, I'd entertain a motion to close the meeting. Moved by Paul, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Let's go give Superintendent a big old hug. Thank you.